Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, you quieted down fast. There was royalty in the room. Okay, I'm going to do just a really quick confession. I might be a little nervous. How about that? So we are going to start with a quick video, and I will just say, some of you have seen this video online. This was a recruiting video that football did. But what I'll say about it is that I'm so excited about it because it feels like when you look at it that we might have had some input. We didn't, and that tells you a lot about the relationship between the Alumni Association and football. That's all I'll say.
Notre Dame. It'll change your life if you let it. Just think. This brand, second to none in college football.
There's no question that Notre Dame has the best, biggest, and finest name in college football.
You're the only program in the country with our own TV partner. No other program plays in bigger venues and markets than we do.
This degree, the pride of your family for generations to come.
I promised my mother a long time ago that I would do it, and not only for myself, but for my family as well.
This network will set you up for life.
The people that have come through Notre Dame and have planted themselves throughout the world. The Notre Dame network that at any moment, for any reason, will find you a solution.
Oh, in this football, nothing comes close.
Play that will seal the playoff bid for Fighting Irish.
And the Irish have knocked off #1 Clemson.
That's a terrific catch. Kurt Heinz wraps up the most fantastic game in history for me at this stadium.
4th and 1 around the edge, and Kyle Hamilton said no.
What a run by Kyron Williams.
You can play anywhere you want, but think about it. Don't you deserve more than the game?
To see you all reach your goals and live out a dream is what gives me my inspiration.
That's on the football field, that's off the football field, that's in leadership, that's in everything we do.
Think. Your story, your family, your legacy. This is 4 years for the rest of your life. So, think big.
So to open up, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, you've been here a while, but not long. What does the Notre Dame network mean to you?
Ooh, it's powerful. It's powerful. You watch that video and I've seen it before, but it still gives me chills. It's so humbling to realize, I have the opportunity to be the head coach of this football program, but it's so much bigger than that. And that to me is the power of this place. It's a network. And maybe it's understanding you don't have to be a graduate to be a part of this network, right? I feel a part of this network, and it's what I sell to our recruits and what I push our players to understand is that you can get so much more than just football here. You can get so much more, and you can make relationships, and you can make decisions that's going to impact the rest of your life, and that's because of the people in this room and the network that we have.
Thank you. 5 months in, tell us about the transition to head coach. How has it been, and what have been some of the biggest surprises?
It's a lot. It's changed. A lot has changed, right? And I guess I'll start with this. If you would have asked me a year ago from today, hey, you're the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, you'll be the head coach in a year, you would think you would become a different person. It almost means that title makes you a different person, but you don't have to change, right? Your requirements are different. Sometimes people view you differently, but you are who you are in the core of your heart. And so that's the way I'll continue to lead, the same way I've always been. And that's with integrity, but with hard work. And it's been a lot of fun. I miss certain parts of it. I miss, sometimes being in a staff room and watching film and just being able to just relax and talk football. And I miss being in a room with 10, 12, 15 players every day. But it's a reminder every day to myself that you can impact so many more as the head coach. So the transition is still happening, but listen, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
and we're glad of that. So you've talked about it a little bit, but you could have coached anywhere in 2021 and even this past offseason, and you picked Notre Dame both times. And you were sought after. Why?
Well, I think I go back to last year when I interviewed with Coach Kelly to be the defensive coordinator here. And it was an unbelievable experience, right? An unbelievable opportunity to be the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. But I had promised Coach Orgeron at LSU, I said, hey, I'll be down. This was on a Tuesday. I told him I'll be down on Wednesday. And so I told Coach Kelly that. And I'll never forget, he didn't panic. He just, okay. He said, go ahead. I went down to LSU and I interviewed with Coach Orgeron, and it was SEC, and it was crazy. SEC football is different. And he was like, hey, I need to know your answer right now. And I'm like, no, Coach, I need to go home and I need to take 24 hours to decompress a little bit. And so me and my wife flew home, we slept and woke up the next morning, and that emotional feeling that you have when you're on any campus had worn off a little bit, right? And I tell this to recruits all the time, because they'll go here, they'll go Ohio State, they'll go Michigan, and everywhere you go, you'll have an emotional, like, man, I can see myself playing here. I could see myself being a defensive coordinator here. And then it came back to the facts. And ultimately for me, I wanted to be a head coach one day. And I knew in my heart, people would view me, the presidents would view me differently because I was associated with Notre Dame. I was associated with this network. I was associated with the prestige and the history of this place. And that's why I chose this place, because of what I thought it could do for me in the future. And it's the same thing I tell recruits, is that you can go to Notre Dame, you can go to Ohio State, you go anywhere and play great college football. But what is that place going to do for you for the rest of your life? And obviously for me, it may be the next head coach at Notre Dame. So I made the right decision.
So it made you the head coach at Notre Dame, and by all accounts, right, you shouldn't have been the head coach, right? It wasn't in the plans. You've only been here a year, and yet there was such an incredible amount of support for you on the team. Mm-hmm. I would say, how many in this room, maybe? Was there a little support? Yeah? And I love that video of you going into the locker room. What was that like? What was this whole process like?
Whew, it was...
Tell us the inside scoop.
Whew, how long do we have? I got a lot of stories. Well, let's take you back to the Monday when... let's take you back to probably midway through the season. And, I was talking to Coach Kelly at practice, and they had LSU had just let go of Coach Orgeron, and he was... We were like, man, I made the right choice. Yeah, I know, Coach, I made the right choice. Yeah, I know. But I never, ever got the inclination that he would ever leave this place. Obviously, it's special. And so I was outside of a high school, okay, and I get a call from my agent and says, are you 100% sure that Coach Kelly would not be talking to LSU? Like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, there's no way. There's no way. So I go into the school, I put my phone down, and it keeps buzzing. And I'm talking to a recruit, and I'm like, why does my phone keep buzzing? I look, and I have 6 missed phone calls from Coach Kelly. And I said, uh-oh. I said, I better take this call. And I called him back, and he said, Marcus, I'm going to take the head coaching job at LSU, and I want you to come. And then it kind of just became a whirlwind. And so I just told him, I said, Coach, I got to talk to my wife. I got to figure this thing out. And so from that point, you saw a little bit of momentum. When Jack called and said, would you be interested in interviewing? Absolutely, but until you got the call that said, hey, you're going to be our next head coach, it was just it was crazy. But I think it brings you to that moment. So that, I don't know if that was a Wednesday or it's all crazy, but from the point I talked to Jack Swarbrick when he said, you're going to be our next head coach, and he also said, you don't leave your house. Don't answer your phone. Don't talk to anybody. He said his direct words, you can tell your wife, but you can't tell your kids. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's 48 hours, you're locked in your house and you can't answer your phone. And so that moment was just 48 hours, which seemed like an eternity of just wanting to embrace. All I want to do is be around my players. All I want to do is hug them and let them know that we are in this thing together. You have a leader. You have a head coach that's ready to lead you guys to all of our goals. And so that moment to me was all that build up and the chance to embrace your new team. And so I was so excited.
We were too.
Oh, thank you.
And there's a theme here, right? You're probably hearing it. My team, my players. But what else? My wife and my family, right? Both times I got to ask my wife. I like this guy.
No doubt.
And we're going to get to the personal side of it, but I've had the privilege of a little bit getting to know his wife, who is just absolutely a force to be reckoned with and a wonderful human being. So it's a dynamic duo. So I want to get to that, but the spring game's just a couple days away, right? And let's talk about the staff that's going to be there. Tommy Rees and Matt Bayless said, yes, I'm staying, I'm not going. And we're the couple of the big names, others as well. Katie's here. Katie said, yes, I'm staying. Okay, Katie. And then Harry Stan came back, which was a really big deal. What were you looking for as you were filling these various positions? What was your vision?
Well, before you become the head coach, you think when you become the head coach, you just make every decision. I'm going to hire everybody that I know, that I've coached with. And I realized when I became the head coach, that's not what's best for our program. That's not what's best for our coaching staff. In order for Tommy Rees to have success on his side of the ball, he has to have some input. He has to feel like he is a part of the process. And so what I told Tommy, I said, Tommy, here's what I'm looking for. I said, I'm looking for great men. Right? Great men that have great character, that are great football coaches, X's and O's, but are great recruiters. We need great recruiters. It's so important. I said, bring me, you kind of go through the list and bring me your top 2-3 guys that you really, really like, that fit that category. And he did. And we've hired an unbelievable staff that I think they're all different. All have those traits that I'm talking about. Great men, great recruiters, great football coaches, but different personalities. And I think that's what it takes to have a successful team. That's no different than the team we have. The beauty of Notre Dame is you get kids from all over, really the world. We got kids from Germany, got a kid from Hawaii, and all over this country to come together for a common cause. And that's what I wanted our coaching staff to be. I didn't want it to be all buddies of mine. I didn't want it to be people I worked with and knew. I wanted all different minds and personalities, but they all had those similar traits that they love young people, great recruiters, and great football coaches.
So Al Golden being one of them, right? And you had never worked with Al Golden before, but he was your guy. Yeah. How did you know that?
It took a little bit of talking to Al Golden, right? And I knew of Al Golden as the head coach, for Temple in Miami, Florida. I knew of Al Golden as the NFL linebackers coach, but I didn't know him personally. And I had so many people call me on his behalf, just raving about what type of person he is. And he said he's such a great person. He's so intelligent. So they're in the playoffs and we're talking and we're watching film. And the more I talk to him, I'm like, this is what we need. Not only was he a former head coach, but he is so sharp, so intelligent. And he was willing to say, you know what? Let me figure out what you guys did last year. Instead of just coming in and saying, here's the playbook, here's what we're going to do. He wanted to figure out what we did last year for the kids so he could help blend some of the philosophies he had, some of the philosophies I had, to make sure that he's helping the kids learn in this transition. And so he's been a great addition for me, but also for the entire staff.
That's great. That's really great to know. I have all kinds of questions here. I'm going to ask a few more, but I know that there'll be mutiny if I don't open it up.
Okay.
So besides keeping everybody healthy on Saturday, what do you hope to get out of this game? What does Saturday look like for you?
Well, I just was thinking about what I want to say to the group tomorrow, pregame wise, and Saturdays in Notre Dame Stadium are different, right? And it's not just practice 15. We get 15 practices in spring, so the spring game is really considered practice 15, but it's different, right? It's when you walk into that stadium, and I don't care how many fans, you feel the fans, the energy. It's different, right? It brings that competitive spirit into your stomach, into your body. That okay, this is different, and I want to see them go compete, right? I want to see them really, when the lights come on, who's going to show up and who's going to really exemplify that competitive spirit that we talk about. So I'm going to make it competitive. We split the teams up. We had head coaches. We named head coaches. We split the seniors up. They drafted their team. So there's a little bit of ownership, right? It's not offense versus defense. There's ownership in my team. You should have heard the head coaches at their team meetings, like they're ready. They're going at each other. And so I like that, right? I'm stirring the pot a little bit. I'm like, yeah, this is what his team said. What is your team going to do? So it's fun when you're the guy that I get to just sit back there. I got both teams, but I want to see them. You know what? I told the coaching staff, let's let our guys play. Let's evaluate when the lights are on. I know it's going to be daytime, but what we say is when we go into a stadium for game, the lights are on. When the lights are on, who's going to show up? Right? This isn't practice. Treat this like a game, because this is going to be the closest game-like environment till September 3rd, right? When it's real. And so I want to make sure our kids understand that this is a little bit different tomorrow.
That's great. Can't wait for the game. So you have a unique background in that you're only the second Black head coach ever here at Notre Dame. But you also are the first Asian head coach. And so a little shout out, where's our Black alumni board members? Right here. And where are our Asian Pacific board members? So a huge welcome there. Your dad was in the Air Force.
Yep.
And he met your mom.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
So my dad went into the Air Force right after high school. So he was 18 years old and served 26 years in the military as a Vietnam War vet. And he went to Korea. Yeah. As you get older, I guess you learn to appreciate that. I mean, he was an old military. I mean, he was tough on me now. Some things that I don't appreciate, but he served 26 years, went to Korea, and he met my mother at some point over there, and brought her back. And it's a funny story. I'm like, I said, my dad, how long were you in Korea? And Mom, you came back. Okay, all right. I don't, it's Dad and Mom. And so then he retired and in Wright Pat Air Force Base in Ohio, and they waited to have kids. So my dad was, I think, 41 with my brother, who's 2 years older than me, and 43 when he had me. And so a little bit different in terms of, the age gap. And so I always say my father was a part of what they call the silent generation. So he didn't talk much about, social issues, military issues, but he was very to the point, black and white. Yes, sir, no, sir. You get up at this time, you work hard, you work out, you outwork your opponent. And those are things that were instilled in me, that I'm a guy of routine. I like to get up at the same time. I like to do very similar routines every single day. My thought process is always do things with integrity, but outwork your opponent, all right? And then you got this Korean woman that came to the United States with my father that she loved and didn't speak English. And all she knew was, I'm gonna support my husband, and when she had kids, do whatever it takes to make sure my kids are taken care of, and so she worked 3 jobs, and I remember growing up and helping her at night. She was custodian at night for her 3rd job, and we would help her at night go clean up businesses, and as you get older, you learn to appreciate that, the selflessness, and that's to me the other side of me where, it's outwork your opponent, be disciplined, but put others before yourself, treat everybody with respect, and that's kind of how I was made and raised, and I'm so grateful for it.
Well, and you seem to be doing that with the next generation, Vinny, Sienna, Gino, Nico, Capri, and Rocco. Those are the 6 kids. And I've had a privilege to watch them, and very, very similar, very disciplined kids, really full of life, delightful, but am I right? Yeah. No electronics?
Oh, sometimes.
Sometimes? Okay.
They got to earn the right, but you know, I've always said you can, right? I tell our players, you have to make the choice to you can be a lazy father, or you can say, hey, I'm going to work hard. Well, most credit goes to my wife because she's with them majority of the time, but we try to limit the time they have on electronics to force them. You got 6 kids, force them to play with each other. You know what? Figure out how to entertain yourself. And so that's part of it. Yeah, I'd say no, because I'm sure they love to be on the iPad or daddy or mommy's phone and watch YouTube, and they get a little bit of that time. But the majority of the time, grow up together. You know, and they don't have to stay in the same room, but they choose to stay in the same room. A lot of times they got 4 kids in the same room because we put bunk beds in there. But I love that. I love that because it forces them to become not just a family, but close and connected.
That's really great. And every once in a while, you'll have 1 or 2 of them at practice with you, or in the office. Yeah. So how do you balance being the Notre Dame head football coach and the father of 6?
I got a lot of work to do. But it's a blend, right? And it's for 2 reasons. One, I could stay at that office and work 24 hours a day and always have something to do. And so with that type of schedule, you are forced to I tell my wife, anytime you can bring the kids here, I don't care if it's 1, 2, however many, bring them here. I don't care if we have a meal. I don't care if half the time they're running around to Katie's office and other people's office more than they come to see me. They just love our staff. But that's a way you can spend time with them, even if I can spend 20 minutes with them. You know, it's important to me and hopefully to them that they see Dad. But the other part is because a lot of our players don't have that example, right? Mm-hmm. I want our players to see us coaches as fathers and husbands. Not the things we preach to them, but watch us. Because they need an example. And it's so impactful to me as men and leaders to make sure our young people understand this is bigger than football. At some point, you're going to be a father and a husband, and make sure that hopefully we're setting a good example for them.
Okay, so I will close my part of it with one question. And, you know, talk about leading by example and making really important changes. You recently announced that the football team would resume pregame masses on Saturday. What led you to that decision?
A couple things. I would remember being a recruit back in 2002. And I came to a Notre Dame game, and I remember seeing them come out of the Basilica and walk to the stadium, and I thought they always did that. And then I got here last year, and we had Mass on Friday, and I'm like, maybe they just changed it. I didn't know. And so when I became the head coach, I was talking to Ron Paulus, who played here in the 90s, and I'm like, Ron, when did it change that we didn't have Mass in Basilica on game day? He was like, that was something that changed the past couple of years. And I'm like, man, it would be cool to be able to do that again. And he said, there's only one person to make that decision. I'm like, who's that? He said, the head coach. I'm like, all right, okay. So I decided to make that change. But another reason, because I think if anybody has played sports, competitive sports or football, like at the college level, those moments before game, like you can give pump up speeches, you're so vulnerable, like your heart is open, like you're ready to just go. And I think as we go into the Basilica 2 hours before the game, like you're in such a vulnerable position. You open your heart, and to be able to embrace our faith and embrace Christianity here, it is so important to me that moment that, you know what, before we go and we battle on this field, let's remind ourselves about the bigger picture. And that's what you love about Notre Dame. You can truly embrace and truly talk and truly preach about your spirituality. And that was so important for me.
That's great. Well, let's go ahead and open it up for questions. And I think we've got some microphones floating around.
Hey, Coach, thanks so much for visiting with us. Is there an inspiration or motivation that's propelled you during this time?
You know, people always ask, like, is this your dream job? And I never aspired to be the head coach at Notre Dame. Did I want to be a head coach? At some point, because of the challenge, right? I'm always looking for a challenge. When I became a GA, a graduate assistant at Ohio State, I said, hey, at some point I want to be a linebackers coach, but I'm just going to coach, be the best graduate assistant I can be. Then I was hired as a linebackers coach at Kent State. And I wanted to be a defense coordinator one day. But all my focus was, how can I be the best linebackers coach ever? Same thing as you go to Cincinnati as your coordinator, be the best coordinator. And I did say at some point, I want to be a head coach. I want to try. I want the challenge. But in order to get to that challenge, that opportunity, you work as hard as you can where you're at, right? Just work as hard as you can. And so that's my motivation. You know, I love challenges, but I gained a passion for serving young people. I got into this profession because I loved football and I loved being around a game, and I thought it was just like you get to coach football and X's and O's, but then you realize very quickly that the greatest fulfillment for me is seeing young people succeed. And that's why I wake up, and that's my inspiration to do this.
Coach, I don't think I've met one Notre Dame fan that isn't thrilled to have you as the head coach. We can't wait to see what's going to happen come September. But if you talk to people that aren't Notre Dame fans, and even those misguided people that hate Notre Dame, they'll come back and say, you guys are going to stink. You got a new head coach, you got a new coaching staff, you don't know who your quarterback is, and it goes on and on. How do you take all those things and turn them into a positive and motivate the team?
Yeah, I think something really positive happened. It was a negative thing, but it was a positive thing for my future happened last year. And you become the defense coordinator at Notre Dame, and all the support in the world, and people love you, and one day you're going to be the next head coach. And then we go play Florida State, and we stink on defense, And I get on the bus, and I just do my normal routine. I get on Twitter or whatever, and one of the inbox said, this isn't Cincinnati, don't do that, go back. And it was like, oh, okay, this is different. But it made me at that point, I kind of checked out of social media. And we do it for recruiting, and some people help us run it, but it almost prepared me for this opportunity, because you can't focus on the things that really don't impact your team or impact your success. And so every once in a while you hear it, but my focus is the players. And our focus is there's an optimal level that this roster that we have can play at. You have your roster, their talent level is here. How close can you get this group of guys to play at that level? That's our focus. Every day, get them closer and closer and closer. So September 3rd, in those 12 guaranteed opportunities that we have, we can perform as closest to that level as we can. That's all we can control. And so if that isn't good enough, then we better recruit better, But I believe we have a roster that's going to be good enough to win every game we play.
Hi, Coach. Katie Ritter over here from Notre Dame Club of Cincinnati. We love you in Cincinnati. When I was listening to your story, I heard very similar situation between you and then Coach Ivey. So having been elevated to that head coaching position probably a little bit sooner than you originally thought. Have you two ever discussed that? Are there other people within the Notre Dame organization that maybe you've relied on as you've stepped into this head coaching position? Yeah,
that's a great question. Neil is awesome. We talked this morning about a recruit, and she brought a recruit in that I got a chance to talk to 2 days ago. And I tell you that because that's what Notre Dame is. It forces you to become a teammate, right? It's 8,000 to 9,000 students here. It's not 60,000 students. It's not a huge campus. It forces you to become a community. And Neil's a teammate of mine. That's what I view her. I said, anytime I can help you, reach out. If you could help me, I'm going to reach out. And so I lean on all these head coaches and all of the community of Notre Dame, because that's what this place forces you to do.
Hey, Coach, Mike Giampa with the LA Club. First thing, thank you for doing this. It's really cool, and we really all appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
On behalf of all of us, if there's ever anything we could do for you, please let us know. But so I think the relationship you have with your team is one of the things that has us all really excited. But as anyone in the room who's a coach or a parent or a teacher knows, there's a really fine line between being a friend and being someone they like, but also being in that position of authority and getting results. So just talk a little bit about that and how you plan to manage that.
Absolutely. I've always said this, I'm a leader as a teammate, right? And what does that mean, you're a leader as a teammate? Is that I'm in the fight with our players. And I'm willing to always have their backs, no matter what. Okay, I view myself as a captain, I say, not an owner, right? I don't look down. I'm gonna set the standards. I'm gonna hold you accountable to those standards. But no matter what happens, win, lose, we're in this thing together. And so I've always believed this. You can push young people to the level that they trust you, right? And how do you gain trust from your players is that, you know what, you're a man of character, right? You show them that you're a man of character. You show them that, hey, we can connect outside of football. It doesn't just have to be in football. And our thing is that I can help you get better at the game of football, right? I think if you show them those three things, they learn to trust you, right? And the more they trust you, you open up your vest and say, hey, this is who I am. There's no closed doors. You know my family, you know my wife, you know everybody, right? Then when you hold them to those standards and you push, because we push them hard, they understand that it isn't because of fear or anything else. It's because you know what? You know this is what it's going to take to get them to the next level. And so I love it. I talked to Coach Holtz one time, and the first thing he said was, my players would never call me a players coach. And I just started laughing. I said, I know what you mean, coach. But trust me, it isn't buddy-buddy. But they know they got a coach that loves them. But they know they got a coach that's going to push them to the highest level because that's what they want. They want to be the best, well, then this is the level they got to perform at. And when they're not performing to that standard, we got to push them there.
Hi, Coach. Nicole Phillips. I'm the president of the Columbus Club, so little work to do over the next few months to welcome you guys to town. But, you know, as someone who grew up in Ohio, obviously went to OSU, just would love to hear your thoughts about kind of coming back to the shoe for that first game and playing against your alma mater. Kind of how you balance the emotions of that with, you know, the task of leading this team down.
I hope we record this answer and then get it out there, and then the next people that want to ask me about this, like, we already had it. We got this one. It's great. Yes, every once in a while you peek down the road, because this is what I try to. I like to explain it this way. Our focus isn't Ohio State or anybody else, or we have goals. We want to be national champions, right? But every day, as I said earlier, we focus on how do we get closer to that optimal level. But every once in a while, you got to peek down the road and say, why am I working so hard? Why is coach pushing us so hard? Because of, guess who we got the first game? It's a great opponent, you know? And so the beauty for me, because I know a lot of people will try to make it about me going back to the shoe. I did that 2 years ago when I was at Cincinnati, right? And it was my first time back as an assistant coach in the opposite locker room. And I did it, and I was like, man, this is different. And I had a chance to go through the emotions of being back at your alma mater. But I'd done it, you know, and so I know what it's like. I just did it 2 years ago. And so my job now is to take this team and prepare them, and let's go battle. Like, let's go see how good we are, right? Because there's no better way to measure how good of a team you are than play against a really good opponent. And so that's going to be our driving force. We're excited as heck. I'm sure as that week comes, our players will have to be controlled, because don't worry about the opponent, worry about what we have to do. But it's going to be a big one, and we're excited for it. Good.
Coach, the collegiate sports has obviously changed a lot. Can you talk about the challenges with the NCAA changes with transfer portal and name, image, likeness?
Yep. Let's start with the transfer portal, okay? I think can be a lot of good for the transfer portal. And, you know, how I've seen it as the head coach here at Notre Dame is that, you know what, a lot of our guys there's not many that go to the transfer portal, but the ones that did, they wait until they get their degree. And they say, hey, coach, I'm getting my degree. I'm not playing as much as I want. I think there's a better opportunity for me, you know? And you know what, that's a positive thing. Get your degree, and if there's a better opportunity for you to go play more, that's awesome. You know, we spend a little bit of time in the transfer portal, usually try to get a couple graduate transfers. It's really, really hard to get somebody into school here. And we understand that, because that's what makes Notre Dame special, okay? And so there's also instances that people, and it's usually not here, but I'm sure people are uncomfortable where they're at on a depth chart, so they run and think that it's going to be an easier way to go into the portal. But that's, to me, not why it was created. You know, I think anything worthwhile you have to work for and sacrifice to gain. So there's positive and negatives to it, the transfer portal. NIL, I think it's great that our current players and the current student athletes can capitalize off their name, image, and likeness. And so there's no better place to do it than a place like Notre Dame. We have the strongest brand in all of college sports, in my beliefs, in that, you know what, if you're a great player at Notre Dame, you're going to be really able to capitalize off your name, image, and likeness. You know, if you're not a great player, you're probably not going to have many demands, you know, to capitalize off of it. And so that's, to me, where we're able to sell our brand, the Notre Dame brand, the sponsorships we have. You can truly maximize who you are in your name and maximize off your name, image, and likeness. But in terms of recruiting and all that, that's, you know, that we just sell what our players do. Hey, this is the way our players are able to maximize off their name, image, and likeness.
I was going to ask a question, and then I remembered, oh, wait, it's not my turn. So do we have another one out here? Right over here.
Well, we had a great event last night. So we invited all of our former players back for this weekend, and we want this to be a weekend kind of like this is here. Like, we want this to be a weekend every year that the former players come back. And we had an event last night where our current players, 2 hours of networking with the former players here. And when you become the head coach, like last year at this time, I was just worried about how to stop an offense. That's all I cared about. How do we stop an opponent? You know, how do we hold the offense to 0 points? Now you develop this deep care for the longevity of a young player's life. And I want to give them everything they want in college. I want them to be able to win national championships, be first-round picks. But then I want to make sure that they're making decisions now that can help them for when the game is done, because it's going to be over at some point, right? We always say this is not a plan B. This is just a plan for life after football, because that is guaranteed it's going to end. So it was such a great experience last night, because a lot of those guys in that room, the former players, were exactly what I wanted for our players. They were national champions. There was first-round picks. There was NFL Hall of Famers, all in one room, and now successful business, some of the most successful businessmen in the world. And so it was so important for me that our players I told them, take a moment and not worry about the present. Don't worry about being a great football player right now, today, for 2 hours. I want you to really, really take a glimpse into your future and start networking with some of the most successful people in this world. And so that was so important for me, and it's going to continue to just grow, grow, grow.
And so to brag on that a little bit, right? So the football has never been able to do something like this at this level. And I had a chance to look at the list and everything. I believe there were 276 former players that spanned from 2022 all the way down to 1963 that returned, including 15 current NFL players that all came back, gave up for their entire weekend to be here to put the stake in the ground, to support Coach, and to say, we're Notre Dame.
That's right. It's so powerful. That's what makes this place powerful. That's what I tell recruits all the time. This is the only place, in my opinion, in the country that you can give yourself everything. You want football excellence? You want a chance to win a national, truly have a chance to win a national championship. We were 5th in the country last year, two out of past three college football playoffs before that. So there's very few teams have been at that level. So you're going to give yourself the best chance to really, really maximize your experience in football. You're going to give yourself the chance to really, really develop yourself for the NFL, right? But then look at the value of our education. Look at the network. And so where else do you give yourself every single option? Most schools, you cheat yourself somewhere in football and academics and a network somewhere. Notre Dame gives you everything. And so that's why I truly believe we'll continue to excel because you can offer young people that network, those former players, the current football success, and hopefully everything they want.
I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. In the back, Andrew?
How much input did you have in scheduling a game against an HBCU, and why was that important to you?
That's a good question.
I didn't have any say. Hey, listen, I do have a boss. Yeah, I have 2 bosses. My wife is one, but Jack Swarbrick is another one. And this is something that Jack and Ron Paulus, who's our football associate AD, have been working on for a couple years. And when they presented it to me, you know, I've heard a lot of the grumblings about it, but one of the mantras we have is challenge everything, right? That's a part of the golden standard. What does that mean? It just means find a better way. Whatever we're doing, let's find a better way. And so when they brought this to me, I said, is this going to hurt our chances of winning a national championship? Nope. Is this going to hurt our program, make us lose money? Nope. Then why not, right? Why not find a better way? Well, it's never been done. It's okay. I hope we can do some things that have never been done, you know? But I want to make sure that we can always maximize the experience for our players, you know? And if I'm not willing to say okay to play an HBCU, who else will, you know? And so I think being a part of being a representation of being a Black and Asian head coach, and you know what? I supported him. You know, I could have easily tried to say, no, I refuse to do that, but he had a vision for what he wanted, and I backed him 100%.
And one right here.
Hi, Coach. I'm on the Young ND board and with the ND Club of New Orleans, so we hope you'll come visit us. But we'll feed you well.
Katie's a big New Orleans fan. You hear that? Put it on the list.
My question is a little more on the personal side, but you talk about how you're a person of routine. So can you tell us, what does your personal pregame routine or lead up to a game look like?
Ooh, pregame.
Or a song that you listen to hype you up.
Well, when I was a player, I don't know if I could tell you some of those songs I used to listen to, but you know, I'm not a headphones guy now. When I became a coach, I really try to take it all in. I try to take the people, the away games, the home. I just try to take it all in and really enjoy these 12 guaranteed opportunities that we have. I'm trying to be more of a calm before the storm guy. Like, I was big on like, oh, we got a game, let's go. But calm, because when the foot hits the ball, we got to go, you know? And so as much as I can get our team to just don't burn all your energy in pregame. Save it, bottle it up, so when the foot hits the ball, we go. But I'm still figuring out this head coach routine. You know, I mean, I only had one game, and I didn't know what day it was. I mean, that all happened fast. That Oklahoma State, that happened fast. But I'll get into a routine here, right? But we'll figure it out at some point.
So in closing, Coach has been so gracious with his time, especially when you consider everything that's going on, you know, the blue gold game, all the players back, and now we're going to kind of usher him out fairly quickly, and I'm going to take the blame for that just because I went maybe a little too long, and he's got a recruiting meeting. So if he walks out really quickly, just know that he'd much rather be with all of you.
I would.
And we'll look forward to that.
I would. Trust me, if I could stay here, I would. We do have a 4 or 5 star on campus that I got to meet with, and we got to try to.
And you don't want that tonight. Yeah. Oh, look out. Thank you.